For horror fans, the past couple of years have thrown up heavy hitters such as Nosferatu, The Substance, Heretic, Inner Violent Nature, Longlegs, Alien Romulus, Sinners, and a whole bunch more. However, away from those such films, there have been so many other great horrors that haven't quite gotten the love that they so very much deserve. So with that in mind then, I'm Andrew from What Culture Horror, and here are recent horror films you need to stop sleeping on. Sleep. Despite being included in the Critics Week section at Cannes, or attempts from the BFI to give it a boost, Korean horror Sleep has largely flown under the radar. From first-time writer-director Jason Yu, this is the story of newlyweds Hyun-soo and Soo-jin, who've just moved into their nice new apartment, where Hyun-soo begins to sleepwalk, with those initially benign nighttime strolls becoming more dangerous and more dangerous and more dangerous, threatening the family's very existence. So, to protect their unborn child, Soo-jin does all she can to make sure her husband stays flat and asleep during the night, including fitting a lock on the bedroom door and sleeping in separate rooms. But nah, it soon becomes clear that there's a little more than a bit too much cheese driving this particular nightmare. You ever get that? Where you have a nice chunk of cheese late at night, maybe some blue cheese, some Stilton, and then you have just the maddest of mad dreams? Well yeah, there's a smidge more going on here than that, with Sleep bringing all the tension and plenty of mystery, keeping you guessing until a phenomenal final act. Daddy's Head. British director Benjamin Barfoot is no stranger to horror, previously delivering, amongst other things, 2017 comedy horror Double Date. And in 2024, Barfoot struck gold with supernatural chiller Daddy's Head, centering on Robert Turnbull's Isaac, whose dead mother origin story is further compounded by the loss of his architect father James in a road collision. With Isaac now left alone with his much-loathed stepmother Laura, in their isolated home in the woods no less, Daddy's Head veers off to left field as a creepy lumbering creature emerges from the woods and stalks that remaining family, sporting what appears to be Isaac's dad's head and features. Taking a leaf out of Hatching's book, Daddy's Head suggests that this new apparition is deeply connected to Isaac's emotions and grief, loading the action and drama with an extra layer of meaning, all while keeping us guessing just how real all of this is, and all while providing some truly horrific visual details. Tummy Monster. Classified as a horror movie, Kieran Lyon's Tummy Monster undeniably utilises many of the genre's tropes, but comes out feeling more like a psychological thriller once you really get into it. Nevertheless, it's an excellent film that manages the unthinkable, repeating one line of dialogue over and over and over and over again, like a monkey with a miniature symbol. Situated within a Glasgow tattoo parlour, Tummy Monster takes us into the life of Tails, a 30-something tattoo artist whose life is going down the pan thanks to, well, basically his own questionable life choices. A late-night hit-up from a famous music star promises to change everything though, offering Tails the opportunity to snag a selfie, get on the better side of his estranged daughter, and revitalise his life in the process. Simples. There's only one problem: the star, known only as Tummy, won't let him get that darn selfie. This kicks off an hour and a half of grim tension, as after Tummy tries to prove a point by continuously telling Tails to perform for him by rubbing his tummy, Tails locks the pair of them in and sacrifices his social life, personal relationships, mental health, sanity, and liberty in the effort to outstay his opponent in a miserable game of wits. The visuals are pure horror, the situations cringe-inducing, and the hints at the supernatural suggest something bigger at play in a film that's worth every repetitive minute. Now, rub your tummy or I'll think you're an a-hole. Starveacre. Based on Andrew Michael Hurley's novel of the same name, Daniel Cucataljo's Starveacre offers an authentic slice of the 70s and of British folk horror. Here, husband and wife duo Richard and Jules live on the North Yorkshire farm where Richard grew up, with Richard wanting to give his son Owen the childhood his own father robbed him of. Of course, things don't go quite to plan, with Owen starting to exhibit disturbing behaviours and talking of voices compelling him to do nefarious evil things. While the setup feels a smidge like The Omen, Starveacre takes a sharp turn into Rosemary's Baby territory, with the bones of a hare entrancing Richard and Jules as the plot unravels around a mysteriously preserved tree. Yeah, it's all a tad strange, and this is me trying my very best to not give too much of the game away, but considering that Starveacre is only the director's second feature, this shows so much promise from him. It's just a shame that Starveacre only received such a limited release. Hollow Road. Another low-budget bottle movie that proves you don't need more than a vivid storyteller and a few sound effects to turn your blood to ice. Babak Anwari's Hollow Road, it has middle-class paramedic Maddie and her husband Frank woken up by a call from their daughter Alice, saying Alice has run over a girl in the woods. The next 80 minutes or so are spent in the car with Maddie and Frank as they race towards Alice, trying to keep her calm, talking her through CPR and doing their very best to save her from two strangers who happen to stop to help. There's no blood to spray or dark corners for killers to hide in, and so sound design and pacing are everything here in Hollow Road, as the camera captures Maddie and Frank's every emotion, from shock through bargaining to devastation. We are forced to live their journey in rich detail, hearing a dead girl's chest cavity collapsing under CPR, Alice breaking down over the course of their phone calls, and the struggle against the couple who turned sinister in just a few short exchanges. Despite the relatively brief runtime, by the end of Hollow Road, you'll realise you've not taken a deep breath for the duration, and the warm light of day thereafter won't be able to shake the deep, goosebumps-inspiring terror, but that's kind of the point. The Vourdalak. Robert Eggers' Nosferatu may be the big Dracula movie of the past few years, and it is great, I had a whole lot of fun with that, but there are still some strong contenders out there, and at a fraction of the budget. Adrien Beau's French language The Vourdalak is one such film, set in 18th century Europe, as Marquis Jacques Sotonin de Antoine becomes lost in Eastern Europe while on business for the King of France. Penniless and horseless, Jacques finds himself at the Gautier homestead, where he's promised a replacement ride and a few supplies. Unfortunately though, the peasant family who live there are beholden to Gautier himself, who's their patriarch and a vampire. Everything that gives films like Nosferatu their grand gothic stature is undercut here in this film, which is shot more like a 70s drama than a 2020s horror, and the Vourdalak relishes in its quirky aesthetic, especially the character design for Gautier himself. Voiced by the director, Gautier is a skeletal puppet who mills around his scenes with threatening allure, and nobody, not Jacques, not the family, or anyone, acts as though this masterstroke of minor absurdity is anything but ordinary. Sure, this humorous vampire picture is undeniably an acquired taste, but for those looking for a unique brand of horror and satire, The Vourdalak is an absolute treat. The Mutilator 2! A film literally 40 years in the making, Buddy Cooper's The Mutilator 2, a sequel to his 1984 movie, premiered at Fright Fest last year, and then things went pretty quiet on that front. If you've seen some of these videos over the past few years, you might have seen me ask, when are we finally going to get The Mutilator 2 released? And then, well then it quietly dropped on Amazon Prime Video earlier this summer. No fanfare, no big announcement, no hoopla, just there it is one day, and it's a whole lot of fun. As you can tell by my voice, I'm smiling big time. The caveat here, mind though, is that I'm not totally sure how those who've not seen The Mutilator will get on with this sequel, but that's not to say you need to have seen The Mutilator first, but there are just a few nice nods and winks that'll bring a smile to the face of those who enjoyed that 1984 fall break. As for the plot, The Mutilator 2 sees the original movie being remade, only for that production and the rap party to be terrorized by a maniac mirroring the work of Big Ed from that 1984 picture. Added to that, with Ruth Martinez and Bill Hitchcock returning from that first film, nicely playing themselves here, while Friday the 13th Part 7 The New Blood's Terry Kaiser plays Jack Chatham, the actor who played Big Ed in that first movie. Plus we've genre fave Damien Maffei along for the ride, best known for playing Man in the Mask in The Strangers Pray at Night, and for voicing Johnny in the all kinds of fun Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the video game. Red Rooms. Red Rooms is only Quebec director Pascal Plante's third feature film, but it certainly has the sure hand of a more experienced director, unpacking a modern world of anonymous digital violence across 2 nail-biting hours. We follow model Kellyanne to the trial of Ludovic Chevalier, a man accused of live streaming the torture and murder of 3 blonde-haired, blue-eyed teenage girls in a so-called Red Room. From the get-go, it's unclear why Kellyanne harbors this obsession with a serial killer, Ella, or why she uses her nefarious tech skills to stalk one of the girl's families, the only girl whose torture murder video has not been recovered by the police. While Red Rooms is crime before it is horror, prioritizing its courtroom elements over the dark images that bring the families, lawyers and jurors together, it is built around a deep well of horrific images and ideas, and the director drip feeds these to us in glimpses of the Red Rooms, detailed descriptions of the violence suffered by these girls, and of course the agonizing and sometimes impassive reactions of those viewing these videos. The 2020's response to Olivier Assayas's Demon Lover, Red Rooms makes pointed use of the kind of technology and corrupted digital mindset that has been festering at the heart of the internet and societies for decades now, putting it to devastating use here. Stop motion. Building on his history of success with short-form stop-motion films, filmmaker and animator Robert Morgan made his craft meta with his first feature, stop-motion, combining the animation style he has spent the past few decades creating and combining it with a live-action story that comments on the trials of this very unique art form. Leading the film is stop-motion animator Ella Blake, who finds herself teetering on the edge of collapse and creative freedom when her mother and boss falls ill. Left to her own devices, Ella conjures a new and horrifying world in which a girl is stalked through the woods to an abandoned house by the monstrous Ashman. Naturally, these events reflect Ella's current living situation in an abandoned apartment block, and as her story progresses on camera, she begins to feel its reverberations in real life, with her hideous creation manifesting in her day-to-day existence. As Ella works through her grief and is engulfed by her work project, we're never certain how much of what she experiences is real, how much is a reflection of something real, and how much is just total fantasy. A hidden indie gem, Stop Motion has all the makings of a future body horror classic, just not for the faint of stomach, shall we say. Humanist vampire seeking consenting suicidal person. Ariane Louis-Saiz's quirky indie vampire movie Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person is a fantastic coming-of-age tale for goths, emos, scene kids, punks, and those old new romantics, diving into the quirky life of 68-year-old teen vampire Sasha as she struggles to take a human life and become a fully fledged adult in the vampire community. As such, Sasha is sent to live with her rough and tough cousin Denise in order to see what life is like in a big bad world and hopefully overcome her own morality issues. Sasha doesn't exactly take to this new life with sharpened fangs, shall we say, though when she meets suicidal schoolboy Paul, she may have just found the answer to all of her problems. That is, until the two start to become friends, and possibly a little more. There's blood, there's kills, there's a Nick and Nora vibe that makes this one feel truly unique, and Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person has a soft and uber cool aesthetic, balancing heavy themes like eating disorders and suicide with a blend of comedy, horror, and a fully idiosyncratic brand of romance.